you, Chair. This Memorandum of Understanding is, as it says, an agreement between the 5 Garden Town partners. It refers to the administration and spending of the Rolling Infrastructure Fund, or RIF, as it's called. The RIF will be created out of the Housing Infrastructure Grant, HIG, as it's known. HIG will fund the transport infrastructure in advance of the development at Gilston villages. This is the government delivering infrastructure first, which is what residents all around the country call for, so that new development doesn't overwhelm the existing infrastructure. The HIG will fund the transport infrastructure needs, such as enhancements to the existing store crossing, a new store crossing, new roads to serve Gilston, and a new sustainable transport corridor and junction improvements between Gilston and Harlow Town Centre. Although front-funded by the government, the developers will ultimately pay for the transport infrastructure, paying into the RIF, which will then fund the other sustainable transport corridors to be built around the town. This Memorandum of Understanding is the precursor document to administer the RIF. There has been a considerable amount of work gone into this, and I give thanks to all the officers involved, as the path to this has not been easy, and in fact is not over. This has been approved by the HGGT board, and we are the first of the 5 partners to review and approve the document. It does not actually have any legal standing. It is a precursor to a larger, more detailed joint council document, an inter-council agreement which will have legal standing and will move HGGT from its current form to deliver the Garden Town. As I said, this is not over. There are still some minor amendments to happen. Hence, I would like to move an amendment to the report, which is in the papers. Do you want me to read out?
If you would mind, please.
To add in, delegated authority is provided to the Director of Strategic Growth and Regeneration in consultation with the portfolio holder for strategic growth, to agree any minor amendments to the Memorandum of Understanding that arise from the decision-making structures of the other 4 HGGT partners. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we come to questions and comments, can I just see a seconder to that report, please? Thank you, Councillor Swords. Any questions, please? Councillor Durkin.
Thank you, Chair. I've got about 4 questions, if I may. The first one is in relation to paragraph 5, where it mentions that the crossing, which we assume is the store crossing, that the money has to be spent by 2025. Could the portfolio holder therefore indicate, is that a realistic timescale, and if so, when does he anticipate work commencing?
To answer your final question first, it is all dependent, of course, on planning consent. So I can't really comment on that at the moment. As to whether 2025 is a realistic timetable, I'm assured that it is at the moment.
Just on supplementary to that one particular, in light of the fact that it's taken us nearly 30 years to build the bridge that Junction 7A, how optimistic are you that we can build a bridge in 3 years?
I'm assured that we will fulfil the timetable as specified by Housing.
Councillor Durkin, your second question.
Is the next section, which is section 6, which is where we are talking about the monies that are going to be invested, and I am aware that this is not just a new thing, this has been in discussion and disclosure for a number of years over this particular issue. But I was wondering whether or not we could take the opportunity to explain what benefits there will be to current residents of Harlow. You can see and understand the benefits for future populations of Harlow, but as us living in Harlow now, I was just wondering whether or not you could explain what the benefit would be.
Thank you. Well, we're really talking about what the benefits of the Harlow Gilston Garden Town are to Harlow, and they are all pretty much documented. but specifically, I mean, all of the new developments around town will pay Section 106 monies, most of which will come to Harlow. Unfortunately, I can't be specific because none of the negotiations have been finalised yet, and they are commercially sensitive.
Thank you. The next one is paragraph 7. If I remember correctly, there was a motion that came to full council that was agreed that this council would be opposed to any development on Latin Priory and Water Lane. If so, why is it still in this recommendation as identified in section 7?
Well, as you said, this document has been in preparation probably for 2 or 3 years, I should think. And it is a precursor to a more detailed document, which I'm not looking forward to negotiating because it's even more detailed than this, and this has taken months. Our objection has been given to the inspector. We have not had a response. She hasn't published her final report, so nothing's changed as of yet until we get that report published, which I understand is going to be near to the end of the month.
And just a supplementary on that one, but wouldn't you agree with me that if this council has made a decision and we have published that decision and we've made it clear to our community about what our position is about it, why are we being asked to agree something that actually we opposed only a short period of time? Surely isn't there an opportunity to make some amendment or highlight in this document the concerns that were expressed by Harlow District Council at its council meeting?
Before you answer, Councillor Harlow, I'd just like to go in. As Councillor Harlow has outlined, this is the memorandum of understanding. It's not a legally binding agreement, and there is natural negotiations to be had in it. But I'm going to allow Councillor Harlow just to follow up on that point.
As I've said, these things have been going on for a considerable time. There are 5 parties, several developers, numerous legal teams involved. Any amendment takes weeks to agree. We know nothing at the moment. As I said, the inspector's report for every project has not been published yet. We won't do anything until we see that report.
Mr. Charles.
Sorry, my final question. Sorry, I do apologise.
I'm just going to add,
Sorry.
Councillor Turkey, that you may recall that at the last Cabinet and at full Council, I've answered similar questions around this. And what I would say to you is this: the Council's policy position and then the motion that was agreed at full Council around our position on certain planning matters to the east, south and west. What we believe, even with this document presented before us, is that does not conflict in particular with our links on Broadley Road. And I did stress that at the last full Council, irrespective of these reports that we've got today, our policy position is consistent on that front.
And just to come back, if I may, as that was a second point of clarification, but would you agree with me, Councillor Charles, is that the average person listened, I'm hoping, to the debate and the discussion in relation to our opposition for building in those particular areas? And do you understand, or do you have some empathy that people might then find it odd that as we've agreed that we're also, or you are actually agreeing a recommendation that actually includes the opposite of what we agreed as the council? It's my last throw on that one.
I will just paraphrase what I said at the last Cabinet, that our position around sustainable transport corridors is consistent with the previous administration, and we believe absolutely that our interests around Broadley Road do not conflict with that.
Thank you, but this isn't about roads, this is about housing. No, and my final question, if I may, Chair.
I was going to come in on that point.
Oh, go on.
And just to say, anybody listening in on the debate would have heard Councillor Charles' answer, and so that will help them seek clarity on the issue. So your I believe 5th or 6th question now from the 4th Please do, carry on.
I think in all fairness to me, all they are most of my questions are in direct response to the response that I've got. They are not my new questions, but my final new question, if I can get on to it, is in section 11. I must admit, Michael, I wasn't entirely sure what this meant, so I was wondering whether or not you could give some clarity to it. And actually, have we got a plan B? Because it sort of indicates that the money may run out. Are we going to be having a half-built new town?
Councillor Harlow.
The problem with the MOU is that it is putting in place a new framework for things which have not been determined yet. None of the Section 106, the Transport Section 106, or the other, Gilston, all the other developments have not. Well, Gilston has been started, but the other ones have not been started. So nothing is quantifiable. The amounts are not quantifiable. Nothing is quantifiable. So all this is doing is put the framework in place as to how it might move forward.
Thank you, Chair.
I had Councillor Leffard indicating for a question.
Not a question, just a suggestion.
We'll come to comments in a moment,
Okay,
please,
fine.
Councillor. Are there any other questions on this report? I see none. So comments, please. Councillor Leffard.
Thank you, Chair. No, I listened with interest to Councillor Durkin's questions, numerous questions. And actually, though, I thought it might be useful just to refer him to the Harlow Development Plan, which was prepared in depth by his own administration. I think you'll find many of the answers to your questions there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leffard. Councillor Durkin, I would expect nothing less.
I mean, if somebody quotes me or mentions me, it's only my duty.
That we should not quote you.
Absolutely. I thought you would have learned that quite
Technically,
quickly.
I didn't quote him, I referred to the previous administration.
You did indeed. You did.
I think you did mention me. In all fairness, I think you did mention me by name.
Your comments, anyway. Your comments.
No, absolutely. And as we know, as the Cabinet member is saying, this is a rolling programme. It will hit many bumps in the road as we go along. I do know that we have been working collectively over a number of years to get us to this particular point. When we were in administration and we worked with Andrew and others to absolutely ensure success. And even though we do have our political significant differences about what you've been offered, you've told us, and what we're actually going to get, I think there is mutual interest that we actually work as closely as we possibly can to ensure that the legacy is safe and sustainable as we move forward. So absolutely, regardless of politics, if there is anything that we can do, or if there's anything of an ask from us, then absolutely we would welcome it. We do know, however, there are some very unhappy people in Harlow in relation to the future development of the Stork Crossing, and it's disappointing to note that only 3 of those will be allowed to ask questions or object at that particular time, but we'll see how that evolves. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, I'll sum up before I come back to Councillor Harlow. I'd like to thank Councillor Harlow and the officers for preparing the report. It is on the back of the work that's taken place over many years. I would like to say I see no contradictions in our policies or inconsistencies. I think we've been very consistent throughout. We have said that this is merely a memorandum of understanding. It sets out a framework, a starting point for further discussion and more detailed work. And we have to start somewhere, and this is indeed where we are. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask Councillor Harlow if there's anything final to say before I go to the vote.
Just a final point. Having said that it's dealing with undefined amounts, of course the one defined amount is the HEAP funding, which is 171 million, which is forward funding the infrastructure. So that figure is known, but it's the only one that is known. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if I return to the recommendations on page 20, can I, rather than read them all out, can I ask Cabinet that we bear in mind the amendment to the recommendations that Councillor Harlow moved, With those amendments in mind, can I see agreement on A through to C? All those in favour? Agreed. I suppose I should say all those against as well. None? Okay, thank you. Right, moving on.